Hello everybody, welcome back to the Finale Notepad e-learning module. My name is Omar Blanco and I'm the instructor for this course. So here we are in lesson 4, adding decorations. In this lesson we're going to be going over adding crescendos and decrescendos, adding dynamic and tempo markings, adding slur and tie articulation markings, and adding various decorations to your finale document. This is a very exciting lesson in that we really get to make our music come alive by adding these various decorations. Let's go ahead and get started. So here I am back in my masterpiece document that we went over in our last video. And the first thing we're going to go and do is add crescendos and decrescendos. Now, you want to go back up to the toolbar and locate where these are. These are going to be right at the bottom in the third bar. And if you hover over, here we have the slur tool, here we have the decrescendo tool, and here we have the crescendo tool. Let's start with the crescendo tool. Once you click that, you're going to notice that your cursor has now turned into this arrow pointing up. Now, these steps are very intricate and very specific. This is the only way to do it, and it's a little bit funny to get it down the first time. You're going to double click to add your crescendo, but you're going to hold down the second click. And if you do it right, this is how it should be. So I'm going to double click and hold down my second click and drag. And I'm holding it down and I'm dragging it out. And there is my crescendo. Okay, so just be aware of that. That is the way we want to make sure that we do it. It's the only way to do it. If you go in and you just click on the measure, nothing is going to happen. This is me just clicking once. This is me clicking twice. Nothing. You got to make sure that when you do this, you do it correctly. Click twice on the measure you want, but to hold down the second click and drag out. Okay, so just be aware of that. It's the exact same thing with the decrescendo. Now I'm going to add decrescendos in this middle measure. Double click, hold down, and there it is. Same thing over here. I'm going to go ahead and add a decrescendo right here. I'm double clicking and holding down. Now let me add a crescendo right here. And again, double click, hold down your second click and drag out. Okay, now something to keep in mind here, sometimes they might be a little bit too small, and Finale is actually really cool with that. If you go up until the top right here where your crescendo or decrescendo starts and you move up, hold it down, move up, you can see my crescendo has now gotten a little bit wider. And to edit any of the old ones that you put in, simply click on the box right here up at the top, drag up, and again, this makes it just look a little bit nicer. This is only if you really need to. You don't have to do this. It's just a neat way to make sure that you got it down, and if you want to make it a little more obvious what you've added in, then that's a neat way to do it. Okay? Now, let's go in and add dynamic and tempo markings. Whenever you have a piece of music that you write or you're rewriting, there's always dynamic and tempo markings. This tells us how loud the music should be played and how fast the music should be played. Okay, so again, it all goes back to our taskbar up here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and look for my tool, which is going to be the expression tool. Okay, it's the one with the mezzo force or the MF little symbol right there. So I'm going to click on that. All right, and once I click on that, let's say I want to add a dynamic marking. I'm going to double click on the measure I want to add it. I want to add it here on measure 3. I double click and you see a menu pop out. And this will now allow you to add whichever one you want. So let's say this song is supposed to start off strong, forte. I'm going to click that, select, and there it is, exactly where I needed it to. Now, let's say I want to add an a tempo marking. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Make sure I got my mezzo force symbol selected. Double click right here at the top. And again, there are some tempo markings: adagio, moderato, allegro, and so on and so forth. So let's say this piece is moderato. I'm going to double click there, and there it is up at the top. If you want to move it down, there you go. You can move it wherever you want just by selecting that little box tool. You can move around any of the other ones that you need as well. Let's say your piece needs to go, you need to remind your players that it's soft where the crescendo starts. Well, that's very simple. Let's go ahead and make sure we got that selected. Again, double click on where you need it to start. We need to make sure we tell them soft, so piano is soft. Select it. And again, you can drag it where you need it. Boom. Starts off piano. And let's say you need to tell them that it ends forte. All right, well, same thing right here. Make sure you got your tool selected. Double click, forte. Select, and it's right there at the end of the measure where I asked it to be. And there it is. Once I go back to my selection tool, you see all those little boxes go away. And now I have all of my expression markings right there. I have dynamic markings and I have tempo markings as well. Now, let's say that I need to add slur and ties. Sometimes music needs to be played with slurs, and sometimes we need to make sure we tie our music together. So, first things first, let's go ahead and locate that tool. We're going to hover over key signature, and we want to go down right here to the slur tool. Now, something that you're going to notice, the slur tool and the smart shape tool look very similar. This is why it's important to hover over them to make sure that you got the slur tool selected. Okay, so this is what you're going to want to do. This one is just like the crescendo. You need to hold down the second click once you double click. And once you do that, finale will, you can see right there, finale will allow you to select whatever note that you need it to be on. Let's say I want to slur from this B to this C. Double click, hold down my second click, and again, finale will ask me what note do I want it to go to. Let's say I want to slur this entire measure down. Double click, 2, 3rd note, 4th note. Oh, gotta make sure, there it is. Boom, now I have that whole measure that needs to be slurred. Now remember, a tie is 2 notes, 2 of the same notes tied together. So let's do it right here, we have 2 Fs. Right there, double click and it auto formats it for me. Boom, and there we are. So now we've added ties and we've added slurs. So now, what about other decorations? What about accents and all that stuff? Well, that's very simple. Let's go back to our selection tool. And we're going to hover over to the articulation tool. Now this one is note specific. So you got to make sure you click on the exact note that you want. Let's say I want an accent marking on my 8th note right here. So I'm going to double click right there. And as you can see, the articulation selection menu has come out. I have all these different, I have 19 different things that I can add here. I want to add an accent marking. So I'm going to select, and there it is, exactly where I wanted it. Let's say I want another one right here. Same thing, select, and there it's going to be. Now, again, you can add any of these different decorations that you need. Let's say you want a trill happening right there. It's going to be right there. Okay, so again, this is how we add various different decorations, expressions throughout. So let's recap real quick. We went through the decrescendo tool, the crescendo tool, the slur tool, the expression tool, and the articulation tool. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to our presentation and we'll talk more about this. So just a very quick recap, in this lesson we went over adding decorations, adding crescendos and decrescendos, adding dynamic and tempo markings, adding slur and tie articulation markings, and just adding various decorations. I strongly encourage you to go back, tinker with all of these. There are so many. Get yourself familiar with them. Get yourself familiar with the ones you use the most within your class or within your music, and that'll set you up very nicely for when you have to do this on your own. As always, don't forget to save your work, and I'll see you in lesson 5.